Yes, students, in the previous class, we were studying about the one more component of the ecosystem that we had studied, that is the energy flow that we were talking about. This is the third component we are studying. The two components that we have studied before, one is decomposition, and even before that we have studied about the productivity, and this is nothing but what energy flow. We have understood about this. In the energy flow we have come across what the food chains, food web, right? There are two types of food chains we have studied, which are those. One is GFC, called grazing food chain, and other is DFC, detritus food chain, right? One starts from where grazing food chain starts from the producers or the plants, whereas the detritus food chain, it starts from the dead organic material, right? So it is like the end of any organism, or the death of any organism is also what? It is the beginning of the detritus food chain. Correct, no? And we have seen the differences between the DFC and GFC in the previous class. Already we have seen this slide in the previous class. It is very important for you to remember the differences. You should understand what is GFC, what is DFC, right? You should know the meaning and definition, and also you should be knowing the differences in the examination. This can be an important question for you, maybe for 2 or 3 marks, right? And in today's class, let us move on to the next component. In fact, not next component. This is a part of the same component, the third component, that is the energy flow. And in order to understand energy flow more appropriately, or into more details, we have to study the ecological pyramids. See, you all know the pyramids, right? So pyramid is nothing but what? It is a triangle shaped structure having a broad base and a very acute apex, right? Or a very narrow apex. So this is a general concept that you have already understood right from the beginning of your almost high school. And why are we using, and why are we calling them as ecological pyramid here, is because, see, in the ecology, we are going to use these pyramids to explain the relation, or to express the relation between the different organisms which are occupying different trophic levels. ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ನಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಗಳು, how they are interrelated with each other with respect to their number, their biomass, their energy flow. All this we are going to express in terms of ecological pyramids. That means we are only making use of the pyramids as a tool to explain and understand in more detail about the relationship between these organisms present in different trophic levels. Yes? So, in ecology, the pyramids are used to express the food or energy relationship between organisms at different trophic levels. That is what I told you. Right? See, the base of each pyramid represents the producer. See, this statement, we are just generalizing this statement here. The base of each pyramid represents the producers, or the first trophic level, while the apex represents tertiary or top level consumer. ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ಒಂದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಪಿರಮಿಡ್ಗೂ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ನಿಮಗೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ when we go for studying different types of pyramids. So you will come to know that this statement, it is just a generalized statement. You can consider this can be true for most of the pyramids, but not all of them. So this relationship, it is expressed in terms of what? Number, biomass, and energy. Now let us study the different types of pyramids, that is the pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. First, let us consider pyramid of number. So you can look at this diagram. So pyramid of number, here you are seeing the variation of numbers and drastic decrease of numbers as we move up the pyramid here, right? At the base of the pyramid, we are looking at the primary producers. They are nothing but what? Plants, and the number of those plants is how much? 5 million something, right? So 58 lakhs 42,000 anta helಬಹುದು illi, right? And if you go to the next trophic level, that is the higher trophic level, which is the primary consumer. Andre illi primary consumer also means what? It is the It is the primary consumer also means it is a herbivorous, it's a group of herbivorous animals. So this number is decreasing here. Illi innu kadame agide, and at the last level it is only 3. That is the topmost level or tertiary consumer anta en kariteve. The number is 3. So you can take the example of any grazing food chain here. Alva? So you can, if you consider this as the grass, and the small insects feeding upon that grass, right? Small insects feeding upon that grass, or maybe herbivorous animals. Illi ನಾವು ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ you can consider this as the grass and this as the rabbit ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. The number of rabbits is less than that of the number of grass plants, obviously. Yes or no? And the number of sorry, the number of animals feeding upon that rabbit, that means those secondary consumers or secondary carnivores ಅಂತ ಏನ್ ಕರಿತೇವೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದು ಬರ್ಬೋದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ, ಸಾರಿ, ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಕಾರ್ನಿವೋರ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಯು ಮೇ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ವುಲ್ಫ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ಬೋದು, ತೋಳ. So it may be feeding upon the rabbit. The number of wolves are, it is even more lesser than the rabbit, and the lions or the tigers feeding upon that wolf can be even lesser than that of the wolves. Right? So like this, you will always see, in most of the cases, not always, in most of the cases, in every ecosystem, you will find the pyramid of numbers to be upright. Upright ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ straight ಆಗಿ ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡಿರುತ್ತೆ. But this cannot be always true. Why? See, pyramid of number in most ecosystems will be upright because the number of producers will be always more than the consumers. Right? But there are also exceptions to this hypothesis. There are also exceptions to this assumption. What are those exceptions here? In case where the number of the insects feeding upon a big tree, or number of birds feeding upon the big tree, alli number of plant is only 1, number of producer is only 1, but consumer the number tumba jaasti ide, right? And in such a case, what kind of pyramid can you expect? Definitely it will be what? It will be ulta, it will be inverted pyramid. So that is why we come to the conclusion that the pyramid of number pyramid can be inverted also at certain cases, right? It is mostly upright like this, right? But in certain cases it may become ulta, andre alli producer number kadime iddu consumer number ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರಬಹುದು. Okay, so this can be an example where ಒಂದು ಟ್ರೀ ಇದ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸುಮಾರು ಇನ್ಸೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಬರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇರಬಹುದು, right? So this is about the pyramid of number. Then moving on to the pyramid of biomass. See, the pyramid of number and pyramid of biomass are very much correlated with each other, right? How? Let us understand. Pyramid of biomass, you are looking at the two diagrams of the pyramid of biomass here. See, biomass means you already know it is the total amount of the organic material that is produced by any living organism. Maybe it is at any trophic level. So biomass production anta helidre, we are not only talking about the producers here. We have already talked about this before. Biomass production anta helidre, it can be at any trophic level. It can be a consumer, it can be a primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. It can be a herbivore, it can be a carnivore, right? So now in this case, illi pyramid upright ide. Upright ide anta helidre, that means the primary producers are more than that of the primary consumers. Primary consumers are more than that of the secondary consumer. Secondary consumers are more than that of the tertiary consumer. And here we are going to mention the biomass in terms of dry weight, kg per meter square in a given area, right? Per meter square anta consider ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋದು, biomass in a given area ಅಂತ ನಾವು consider ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋದು. So here the biomass of the producers, it is 809 kg per meter square abre. Here it is 37 in the primary consumer level. It is going on decreasing here from one trophic level to another trophic level. Simple example you can consider here. Again, if you consider the same grazing food chain, again ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ grass ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ or rabbit ಅಂತ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, so number of the grasses are also more, and obviously it will also account for what? The biomass is also huge there. Correct, no? And similarly, rabbit, the number of rabbits is more. Andre, you are going to consider each and every living organism present in that particular trophic level. right? You are not going to talk about an individual organism there. We are talking about the population of that particular species, which is present at a particular trophic level. Aga, because the number is more, the biomass is also more. Yes, and wolf anta ನಾವು ಆಗಲೇ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ. Same example we are talking about. Again, the number of wolves is lesser than that of the rabbits. That is why here the biomass is also reducing. And similarly, the number of the lions ಅಥವಾ tiger ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ. When the number decreases, also the biomass decreases. Right? But at certain cases, it can be inverted also. ಉಲ್ಟಾ ಕೂಡ ಇರಬಹುದು. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ಗ್ರಾಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ, correct? But here in this case, primary consumer it is more than that of the primary producer. ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ? Biomass ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, see, you can consider an example of oceanic ecosystem or any aquatic ecosystem for that matter. Aquatic ecosystem ನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, the phytoplanktons, the biomass of the phytoplanktons can be very less when compared to the biomass of the primary consumers or the zooplanktons or many other organisms which are actually feeding upon that particular phytoplankton. Right? So phytoplankton will be the primary producer and primary consumer the biomass ಏನಾಯ್ತು, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯ್ತು. Yes, so that is why at certain cases there is a possibility that biomass pyramid also can be inverted. It is also not true that it is always upright anta alla, right? At certain cases this is also inverted, right? So now next pyramid, of course I have already told you about the pyramid of biomass. It is also mostly upright, but it can be inverted as well in certain cases. An example of GFC I just told you. So illi the birds are depending upon the smaller insects and bigger birds eating the smaller ones. Illi ನಾವು ಏನು ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ, some small birds are eating away on the small insects. Insects they are in turn feeding upon the maybe the smaller plants, right? So this is a normal grazing food chain, and definitely you will see the increase in the biomass. Decrease in the biomass from the level of the producer until the level of the tertiary consumer. You can see the pyramid of biomass can be inverted anta helide nanu. The pyramid of biomass in the sea, that is in the aquatic ecosystem, is also generally inverted because the biomass of fishes is far more higher than the producers. Producers are nothing but the phytoplanktons. The same example I told you. Now going for the next one, that is the pyramid of energy. Energy pyramid ಅನ್ನು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, energy pyramid is always upright. Why? We have already studied in the energy flow in the previous class that energy will be transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. It is always unidirectional flow of energy from the lower trophic level to higher. Right? ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಒಂದು ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಇಂದ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಲೋವರ್ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಇಂದ ಹೈಯರ್ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೆವರ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಆಪೋಸಿಟ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್, ಹೈಯರ್ ಟು ಲೋವರ್ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಂಡ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ದ ಎನರ್ಜಿ, that is the energy transfer, even when we are depicting with the help of the pyramid also, we are talking about the 10% law of energy transfer. Do you remember in the previous class we had discussed about the 10% law of energy transfer? Andre, if the total amount of the standing crop anta en karitivi, yavado ಒಂದು traffic level ನಲ್ಲಿ, so if the organisms are having a certain lifespan, maybe about 20 years ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಆ 20 years ಅಲ್ಲಿ maybe that organism can complete its life cycle or lifespan and complete ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, or maybe in between it can be eaten away by some other organism, right? So as long as it survives, at least until then it will store some amount of the biomass or some amount of energy. So as long as that energy is there in the body of that particular living organism, that is what is called a standing crop anta kariteve, because energy will never be constantly standing at any particular point or any trophic level, but for some time it will be there, and that is what is called a standing crop. This we have already considered in the previous class. This can be an one mark important question for you. Standing crop, what is standing crop anta kelbodu, right? And here see, talking about the same standing crop here, if the standing crop of this one is this much, so illinda next level ಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, if the producers are eaten away by the primary consumer, then so the energy that is getting transferred from the primary producers to the primary consumers, meanwhile only 10% of the energy will be transferred. About 90% ಏನಿದೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ maybe around 50 to 60% or maybe 40% can be utilized by the same organism itself for its own metabolic activity, and rest of it will be lost. in the form of heat, right? And that is why you can see the energy goes on reducing. We are showing, or we are expressing in the form of joules, right? 10,000 joules of energy in the producer level, 1,000 in the consumer level, and in the secondary consumer level 100 joules, and in the tertiary consumer level it will be only 10 joules. That means, so only 10% of the energy, that means it is going to be transferred to the next trophic level. And one more thing to be noted here, always the pyramid of energy is always upright, it can never be inverted. Okay, because when energy flows from a particular traffic level to the next traffic level, some energy is always lost in terms of heat, right, in the form of heat. So each bar in the energy pyramid indicates the amount of energy that is present at that particular level. So if you have played the games like PUBG or any other game, ಯಾವುದೋ ಗೇಮ್ ಆಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಫ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ದ ಮ್ಯಾನ್ ಹೂ ಇಸ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಫೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಗೇಮ್, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಫ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ 1 ಬಾರ್ 2 ಬಾರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ಅದು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಬಂದ ಹಾಗೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಯಿತು, ಇನ್ನೂ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಯಿತು. ಯಾಕೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ವೈಲ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಡ್, so some amount of the energy will be lost in the form of heat. Okay, so I'm just giving you an example of that to understand how these bars actually represent the level of the energy at that particular trophic level anta ashte. Okay, so in the examination don't write PUBG. Okay, so anyway, here these pyramids are very important for you, all these 3 pyramids. So in the examination maybe 1 pyramid can be asked for 3 marks, or sometimes 2 can be asked, right, for 5 marks. Pyramid na ಬರಿತಿರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಪಿರಮಿಡ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡೋದಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ರೈಟ್ ಪಿರಮಿಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇದೇ ನಂಬರ್ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ದೇ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಡಿಕ್ರೀಸಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಹಿಯರ್. And if you are talking about this one here, you should show the correct order. It should be in increasing order. Inverted pyramid ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ, it should be in the increasing order. Here again it should be decreasing order, dry weight ಅಂತ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರಬೇಕು, right? And again for this pyramid of number ಗೆ ಕೂಡ you have to show the decreasing number of organisms at each trophic level, right? So if you have any doubts regarding this, you can ask me later also, right? I hope you have understood about the pyramids. But see, when we study about the pyramids, see, these pyramids can be very much convincing. They will give a very convincing idea about the transfer of the energy or number of organisms varying in different trophic levels, and also variation of biomass. But the pyramid concept cannot hold good always in the ecosystem, always in the nature. The pyramid concept will not be accepted. Yake? So we have to look at the limitations of the ecological pyramids in order to understand the drawbacks of the pyramids. The first one, it does not take into account the same species belonging to 2 or more trophic levels. Andre, see, we have also considered this point while studying about the food chain. ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ, food chain concept can be only hypothetical because sometimes one organism can be present at the same time in 2 different food chains, and that is why the concept of food web was evolved, alva. Similarly here also, that means if one organism is present at 2 different trophic levels, how can you assign it to a particular energy level? How can you assign it to a particular level in the pyramid of energy, or pyramid of number, or pyramid of biomass? That is why, so this ecological pyramids, they never talk about one organism being in 2 different trophic levels at the same time. Okay, and one more thing to be kept in mind, that is, one must remember that the trophic levels, they only represent a functional level. It is not the species as such, right? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಡಿನೋಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ರೈಟ್? ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್, it assumes a simple food chain, something that almost never exists in nature. It does not accommodate a food web. So I just explained this now. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ನ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಫೀಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ಫೀಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ಫೀಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಬಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಫುಡ್ ಚೈನ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫುಡ್ ಚೈನ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಸೋ simple as we see here. So one organism, for example, ನೀವು ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, if there is a frog, it can be eaten away by a bigger bird, it may be eaten away by a snake also, or it can be eaten away by a cat, or it can be eaten away by a dog. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಯ್ತು? So maybe one animal may be eaten away by many other animals. ಹಾಗೇನೆ ಆ ಹೈಯರ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ನಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಅನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ದೇ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ಲಿ ಅಪಾನ್ ಒನ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್. ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದೇ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ದೇ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಡಿಪೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಪಾನ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ಸ್. That means, so once again, the trophic level concept also will be collapsed. The food chain concept will be also collapsed. And these ecological pyramids, they do not talk about what? Complex food web. They only talk about simple food chains. The next limitation, saprophytes. These ecological pyramids, they talk almost very less, and they do not talk about the saprophytic organisms at all, or the detritus food chain ಅಂತ ಏನು ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತೇ ಆಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. But in fact, the energy flow takes place even there, but that has not been taken into account. So this is the third point. Saprophytes are not given any place in the ecological pyramids, even though they play a vital role in the ecosystem, especially in the energy transfer. Because on the terrestrial ecosystem, we have seen in the previous class, on the terrestrial ecosystem, the energy flow, the major conduit for the energy flow on the terrestrial ecosystem is what? The DFC, that is the detritus food chain. So that is not given any place here. Then the fourth one, no generalizations we make will be true if we take only a few individuals at any trophic level into account. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ಪಿರಮಿಡ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡುವಾಗ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, so you will have to take into account only a few organisms which exactly fit into that particular trophic level. But there are also other organisms which will be playing different roles at a particular time simultaneously. They may be participating they may be playing a role as a consumer. Maybe it can be a food for the other organism, or maybe the same organism may be present at different trophic levels. So that is why this generalization will not work in the nature. So this is only a hypothetical situation, just for understanding the energy flow we may have considered. Of course, this is a great contribution to the field of ecology, but still this is a failure. So these limitations explain how the concept of pyramids is a failure, right? So this is about the ecological pyramids, and even the limitations of ecological pyramids can be asked for 3 or 4 marks, maybe 2 or 3 marks for in the examination. So this is also important, right? So I hope you have followed all the things that we have considered in today's class about the ecological pyramids. In the next class, we will study about ecological succession. This is another most important and also very interesting topic of this chapter, called ecological succession, that we will consider in the next class.